I have been saying it since September 2018, and I'm still saying it now. Quite literally. In fact, I say it in a video here and there at least a few times a year when I'm using it as a comparison point for something. But Marvel's Spider-Man is simply one of the best games of its genre to have ever been published. And more than that, it's one of my favorite games ever of any genre. And where once it was a captive of the sickeningly manipulative capitalist practice of platform exclusivity, now it's on PC too, finally free of the compromised limits of a pathetic, sad, little wheezing console. However, while not the utter circus-grade garbage fire that was Horizon Zero Dawn's PC port at launch, which was so catastrophically buggy it was literally unplayable for me, and I've never yet gone back to it to try again to see what all the fuss was about with that game, even after it's been patched no less than 14 times to try and fix it. The port of Marvel's Spider-Man on PC is better than that. Quite a lot better. It is, however, less perfectly realized than it perhaps should be for such a high-profile AAA flagship game from a publisher as large as PlayStation and with such an expensive licensed property.
Nothing like a high-speed chase.
Mordor.
Guy on his toes.
I better go apologize to whoever that... Did I scratch it? No, it's fine. Oh! Oh, something very bad is going on with that texture. Something very, very bad is going on with that texture. That didn't happen on PlayStation. Yikes. Yeah, that's like the third time I've seen a weird texture thing. None of them have been this bad yet, though. In fact, that's not the texture. That's something to do with the lighting engine, I'm betting. Not good, not good, not good. The ray tracing is working. That, by the way, was far from the only glitchy texture I experienced in the game, and I had one hard crash as well. But the question I want to ask today is it a flop? Is Marvel's Spider-Man on PC a disaster? Did it fail as a AAA game on PC? Are its sales and the number of people playing sad and tiny so as to be embarrassing for Sony and PlayStation? I'll dig into that in a minute. And no, I'm not being facetious as bait. I have a genuine question here. I honestly really suspect something is up here. And of course, this game originally launched in 2018 on the PlayStation 4. Since then, it was remastered. Although that term remastered is a pretty generous word to use because it's not true. They didn't remaster it. What they actually did was give it the slightly upgraded and patched game engine tweaks that they had been working on for its DLC turned sequel, Spider-Man Miles Morales. But having released just a few days ago on PC, I'd expect to see a huge lump of eager players eagerly playing. After gleefully throwing 30 of my life's hours playing through the core story over the weekend, I checked in on its play count this morning. 66,000. There's only about 66,000 players. Now this is of course the SteamDB chart for concurrent active players, so it's not quite the whole story of total sales, but it's still way lower than I expected to see. Even God of War's PC port released peaked at 73,000, and that game is good but nowhere near as fun as Spider-Man, and only gamers really know who the shit Kratos even is, while everybody knows who Spider-Man is. Cult of the Lamb had 61,000 peak players, and it is a tiny little indie game out of some you have never even heard of them ever before studio in Melbourne. Admittedly, their publisher Devolver Digital spent a lot on marketing, and I rather suspect buying up quite a few influencers to spruik the game for them, but that's, standard marketing practice these days, that's fine. But still, for a tiny out-of-nowhere indie game to do almost as well as a PlayStation-published and Sony-marketed port of one of the best games ever? Dude, what the hell is going on here? Elden Ring, which released multi-platform, peaked at 953,000. just on PC, and that isn't even the strongest platform for games like this. And it is another game only serious face gamers even give a crap about. Joe Public doesn't even know what the hell it is, and casual gamers get their heads so kicked in by it they're scared to play it. Oh, and I know this one's a very apples and oranges kind of comparison, but my other fave game right now, which is on Switch and PC, Monster Hunter Rise and the Sunbreak expansion, which released a few weeks ago, it has also been doing great. More than 113,000 concurrents over the last day. So what's going on here? What the hell is up with Spider-Man on PC? It's not the quality of the game, hell no. Or the popularity of the franchise, my goodness no. Or is it, competing with a similar release over the same weekend window? No, not really. And it's certainly not the reviews. It's reviewing very, very strongly. It's the pricing. I think it's the pricing that's causing this failure. Sony's horrific greed is the issue here. It's avarice. It's money lost is the problem. Let's compare it to God of War. Seems like the fairest comparison to make. Also a previous PlayStation exclusive, also launched this year, and also a PlayStation published title. It was priced in Aussie dollars. Your respective and appropriate currency value will of course be different because that's how currencies work, and I'm sick of idiots thinking that Australian dollars and American dollars and Canadian dollars and euros and pounds are all exactly the same thing and wigging out whenever I mention Australian pricing. Please, for the love of God, stop with that. Honest to God, I've just started deleting comments like that because I'm sick of correcting people and telling them the shit basic thing about how currencies work. Anyway, in Aussie dollars, Australian dollars, God of War was priced at $75 dues, which is pretty average pricing for a AAA game right now. It's what we'd expect to pay for something like this. To drive that home, it's the same kind of pricing a copy of Pokemon Legends of Arceus will run you. It is the normal pricing for a newly released AAA quality kind of game. Spider-Man's PC port though, it is priced at 95 true blue Aussie dollar dues, fully 26% more expensive than the immediately previous PlayStation port from earlier this year, and of course fully 26% more expensive than standard pricing averages for AAA titles in general. Worse than that, it was originally priced, when it was first listed on Steam, allegedly accidentally in certain markets, at 40% over standard prices. 40% over standard pricing. Something I took a bat to Sony's knees over in a previous video I made about this game in its pre-release state when they finally announced recommended PC specs. A few weeks before launch, they rectified this and sent out a notice. Presumably because a lot of people were complaining about it, not because they cared that they were wildly overcharging people. But because this is Steam, and Steam is a half-assed mess, instead of just refunding the difference back to us, yes, I pre-ordered at the horrific price because I am a jackass with impulse control issues sometimes, and I really love this game. But instead of refunding the difference of the price drop, I had to cancel my whole pre-order, wait for that to be manually reviewed and manually cleared, then wait for a few more days for the funds to actually be returned to me and my Steam wallet, then I had to manually pre-order it all over again, all just so I could preload the damn thing to be ready to stream it on launch day without having to dick around. So, given the horrific pricing that Sony really wants to make the new standard, by the way, make no mistake, this wasn't an accident, this is what they want to price games at. They've spoken about this at investor meetings and to shareholders, and they're not alone in the industry on this. They want to raise prices. Add to that the clusterfuck that was the so-called accidental pricing at 105 Aussie dollars, 105 Australian dollars. It's not hard to imagine why a lot of PC gamers might be a little bit wary of investing in this game, a little bit reticent, a little bit suspicious, a little bit cautious. And it's probably why its player numbers are so pathetic compared to what they really should be for a game of this quality and this renown and license like this. And of course it is just a port of a 4-year-old game originally developed for a last generation console, well, technically a port of a 2-year-old so-called remaster patch of a 4-year-old game. And of course, it is a single player only narrative-based game, which means it can be quote-unquote finished. That there's a point in time we have done everything that can be done, which means that the player numbers will only ever go down from the launch weekend. People will finish the game and then they'll stop playing the game. These numbers are as good as this game will ever see as far as active players go, which for a single player game is not really that important. I mean, you don't need multiplayer, so who cares how many other people are playing at the same time you are playing. But at least for the first week or two of a release, it is a rough but decent indicator of a game's popularity, sales, and player time investment. And that stuff does not look awesome for this game. So I'll be watching with interest to see if Insomniac or Sony actually release any numbers about how well this game is actually selling and how soon it takes them to make an announcement, oh, well, we sold 1 million copies on PC, because I don't know if that number is coming soon or ever. In the meantime, I'll be very, very eagerly also watching for news of the sequel, which is coming to PlayStation sometime next year, unless it gets delayed, of course. But we're pinning our hopes on 2023 right now. Thanks for watching. I am Blunty. Thank you if you've done the thing with the thumbs and the bells and the comments and all that sort of stuff. And thank you, as always, to the patrons scrolling up above there. I love this game. I love it so much.